Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mom and Tom podcast. Welcome to episode 17. I'm Mom.
And I'm Tom. And today's episode is going to be a little kind of extension on our last episode, actually. So last episode, we talked about sports. And so this episode, we figured we would kind of extend that and talk about band, because it's another extracurricular type of activity. So we thought it'd be interesting to go into. Before we hop in, I just want to quick mention that we have an email and an Instagram. Our email is momandtompodcast@gmail.com. That's all one word. And our Instagram is momandtompodcast, all one word. That's our username on there. So go ahead and feel free to check us out. My sister runs the Instagram. She posts on there every once in a while. Always posts when our episodes go up. And feel free to leave a comment or send us an email. So, like I had mentioned, we're talking about our band experience this time. And the reason that we want to do an episode about this is because band is something that ended up actually being quite a big part of our lives, kind of both of ours. My mom more through us, but it was a cool experience. I was in band for 8 years. My sister was in band for 7 years. My brother was in band for 6 years. So
Yeah,
we have a lot
of fun.
A lot of music in our lives. Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and talk about what your experience with band was when you were growing up?
Well, I was fortunate. The elementary school that I went to back in those days, elementary school went through 6th grade. And I was fortunate that we had a band. We had an elementary school band. So that's when I started to play the flute.
Oh, so sorry to already interrupt, but
that's okay.
Do you know if, I feel like nowadays elementary school band, at least as far as I'm aware, is not very common?
No, it is not anymore.
Was it more common?
It was more common.
Really?
Yeah. It was much more common.
Okay.
And I think it was also another thing, I know this little side bar, but we actually had sports teams. I played,
really?
Believe it or not, I played basketball.
Oh, for your elementary school?
Yeah, for my elementary school, and we played other elementary schools.
Wow.
And I came to find out later, after even talking with Dad, to find out that was very unique. And so my guess at this point is that our teachers put that together. Because
that's very possible.
I've got to believe that that's what happened, because I have found out that was not very common at all. And so I'm just guessing that the teachers, I was in the Mounds View School District, and that they probably put that together. Of course, as a kid, you don't realize that.
Right.
But that's my guess.
That's cool, though.
Point. Yeah, it's very cool.
That they thought to put that together.
Yeah, because there was enough elementary schools. There was probably about 5 or 6, maybe even 7 elementary schools. So there was, Montreal was a big enough school district to do it.
That's plenty.
Yeah.
To be able to run a little thing like that. That's cool.
So it's just kind of fun. But anyway, so I learned to play the flute, and I really liked it. And I even remember when I was in middle school, or what was called junior high back then. That was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade back when I went to Johanna Junior High, which is now a Presbyterian nursing home. But we went back and did some kind of anniversary concert at our elementary school. I went to New Brighton Elementary School, and again, it's not a school anymore.
No way. When did you do this?
I think I was in middle school.
Oh, it was just in middle school.
Yeah, it was just maybe a year out of there, and went back and did an anniversary concert, and it was really fun. And
that's cool.
So band really does afford you some really unique and fun opportunities. Sadly, I was immature and I did not want to practice. So when I got into junior high, and we had practice calendars, I just performed poorly. at that, and that was part of your grade. And my
you said that your parents
my parents weren't gonna lie.
Wouldn't lie on it.
Yeah, and we were supposed to practice, I think, 20 to 30 minutes a day, which at that age feels like an eternity. And so, and you know what? I wasn't bad. I was actually, I think I was pretty decent at it. And I look back now, and especially after going through it with you guys, wishing I had stayed with it. But it is what it is. But so I kind of regret that.
I think that is an interesting thing when you're talking about the practice calendars. Is I think anyone who has been in band knows that struggle of like trying
struggle is real.
To motivate yourself to play at least like every other day or whatever, so that you can get this time in. And but I think that's what's kind of interesting about when we got to high school is when they kind of phased out the practice calendars. And I honestly think it makes sense though, because it feels like once you've been in band for that long, like it's probably because you want to be there. You know what I mean?
One would think,
one would think.
And you get that you have to practice.
Right. And when you've established that you do want to be there and you want to, perform and stuff, it's kind of assumed that you just, you practice. And, but going back a little bit, I was going to talk about how I first got started into band, and you can feel free to chime in on this story because this is kind of a funny story. I remember that when I was transitioning to middle school, which is the first sixth grade, which is the first grade where you could have band, play in band, and I remember that it was a choice though. There was like a few different choices you could go for. There was band, there was computer class, which is essentially just like typing and stuff, like getting better at typing, which is a very useful skill.
It's very useful skill.
Not trying to trying to hate on it or anything.
Yeah.
And then choir.
Yeah.
So I kind of already knew I didn't want to do choir. Singing has never been my strength.
Yeah.
So I already kind of ruled that out. But computer, I mean, being a kid who loves to play computer games, I was like, oh, computer, that sounds awesome. Like I definitely want to do that. But then I remember it was either you or Dad or maybe both of you. I'm not sure exactly, but you guys had said that, let's at least talk to the band director.
They set up these band interviews for anybody interested in band, and the band director would talk with each child and just kind of talk about different instruments and whatnot. So that's what that was about.
And I remember in our interview, I have a feeling I probably brought up percussion at some point in the interview because I feel like there's so many kids that want to do percussion. But then it's like, oh, well, at our school at least, you had to had played piano for like a year or two.
Something
I want
like
to
that,
say
yeah.
had piano lessons or something like that to be in percussion. So ruled me out of that. And then the next highest pick especially for kids that age was trumpet. And and I think part of it was the director, Mr. Snell, he didn't want another trumpet.
I think he had lots of those.
I'm sure by then he had plenty of kids wanting to play trumpet. So I don't remember, I don't know exactly what, got him to recommend it. But he recommended to me the euphonium, which is also called baritone, which
I think I remember that we were talking about other brass instruments.
Oh, that must have been it.
And he felt that because of your size that the tuba would be too big.
Right.
But that's why he recommended why he recommended the baritone.
Yeah. So and honestly, I mean, I'm like we sort of talked about last time with the sports, is that I am pretty small, and so even the baritone was like a little big for me at first, at least.
Sure, when you were young, yeah.
But I ended up actually like falling in love with it. Like, I don't know if anybody listens to much classical music, but there actually is a surprising amount of classical music, especially when it comes to like slow songs and stuff that have euphonium solos in them.
Yeah.
And so that was something that
It's a great sound.
Yeah, and it was cool because it was an instrument that I like honestly didn't even know existed. And so when I found it, it was like, wow, this is so cool. And honestly, I think that is some part of the reason that I got so into band was that I was playing this instrument that was not, super common to play, but I was having so much fun with it, and I did get really good at it.
Yeah.
In our middle school, I think we only had, between all the middle school kids that were my age, I think we only had like 4
not
baritones or something like that. Yeah, like I said, it's not a very common thing. And so when we finally got to the level of where you start getting split into like the bands are based on how skilled you are, I was always getting the top band, and I was like, yeah, because I'm the best of like 3. So
wow. Don't look at it that way.
I know, but that's the joke I always made, though, is that like, oh, well, just got to be better than 2 people. And then
yeah. Well, and it worked out well because both you and your sister, we're both making the top.
Yeah, that was really fun.
It made the concerts easy.
Right, true. You got to just watch the one band, yeah. And my sister, by the way, she played clarinet in band. And but when we got to high school, she did actually expand to some other types of clarinets too. She played alto clarinet, I remember. I think that's what it's called. Someone will correct. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's what it was.
She will correct you if you're wrong. That's right. For darn sure.
Because I know that I don't think she ever played the big one, the bass clarinet, the huge one. She was always playing like a more of a medium-sized one.
Yeah.
And I remember there was this one song when we were in when she was in senior year of high school and I was a junior. And we were in the same band, and she sat right in front of me, and there was a song where we had played the same part, and so that was that was
really?
Kind of cool. Yeah.
Oh wow.
We got to just practice it together, and
then it was just so funny how no one knew you were brother and sister.
I know.
How weird is that? I mean, Hadeen's not a super common last name.
Well, I think it was more that a lot of people didn't know what our last names were,
or like maybe.
Well, like her friends didn't know what my last name was, and my friends didn't know what her last or not necessarily friends, but like people our age.
Yeah, I
didn't know the last name of the other person. They just knew that's Rachel or that's Tom.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, because I did have somebody. I don't know if I ever told you this. I did have somebody ask me one time because we used to ride together to school, and one time, when I was walking out to school, out to our car, I had somebody ask me if that was my girlfriend.
You're like, ew.
I was like, no, not that.
Yeah. Actually, I think she got asked that too, like about you. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
Because you guys don't look super alike. Well, anyway, we're digressing. Let's talk about band.
We're digressing. So yeah, I wanted to go back and talk about also some of the trips that we went on for band because that was a super cool experience. Although I suppose to talk
about how you got it. Oh, sorry.
What were you going to say? Go ahead.
Like how you got into jazz, because that was all your trips. So that's
what I was going to say is that I suppose before talking about the trips, I need to talk about jazz band. And jazz band started for me in 8th grade. And at the time, not really at the time, just in general, euphonium is not really a jazz instrument. I mean, it can play a lot of the same. It plays a lot of the same parts as trombone, but it just doesn't have the same kind of sound. And trombones can make a lot of interesting and special sounds that a euphonium cannot.
Yeah.
So I always thought of the euphonium as more of like a sort of elegant sound, and a trombone is more of a rough, like
I think that's
powerful.
I would say that's a good analogy.
Yeah. So yeah, they're useful in their own ways. And so in order to participate in jazz band, I was told that I was going to need to learn how to play a different instrument. And the easiest one, in terms of reading music, the easiest one to transfer to was trombone, because like I said, a lot of times we read the same music actually. And so I didn't really have to change what I was reading. I obviously just had to big time change what I was playing, like the motions and stuff, because there's not really an instrument like a trombone. How you have to move the
whole
slide
thing.
No, almost every other instrument either has keys that you press or valves that you push down. And so a slide is like, how the heck do you learn how to do this? And I remember just my favorite thing though, when I first got it, I just liked blowing in it and then just moving the slide up and down.
You're a kid. I mean.
That was definitely the most fun part. But again, that was something my middle school director taught. He taught me both the euphonium in 6th grade and then the trombone in 8th grade. And so and jazz band is something that ended up being like probably the coolest thing I did
had a
with
lot
band.
Of fun
like
with that.
I mean, you had to get up early almost like every other day to go in and practice jazz, because the only time we had to practice was before school. So that's what we did. And but again, it was a cool thing because jazz had its own set of like concerts and stuff that it did, and there was specifically an event called Nightclub in the White Bear School District, where
when you got to high school,
once we got to high school, where basically there's like a night in February, where it's like a Saturday night where we all went to all the high school bands went to the high school it was the cafeteria, high school cafeteria, and we basically put on like a whole night of jazz and everybody, and it was like a dinner thing, so all your family could come and
it
have
was all
dinner.
Decorated.
It was all decorated like a nightclub would be, like an old timey club, so we all dressed up in our black and our fedoras and stuff.
You got all the other kids really had fun with it.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. And honestly, it was what made it even cooler is that it was like almost like a community event. Like, I mean, when it comes to all the setup and stuff, we had so many parents and volunteers that would bring things, like whether it was like power cords or lights or, decorations. Everyone was helping out. Everyone was
set things up,
doing stuff, setting up tables. And then we had a local Italian place, Donatelli's. They catered the food for us. And so, I don't know, it was
a great fundraiser too. It was also a fundraiser for the band, but and that program has been going on for years, because your dad had friends that were in band and they did nightclubs.
Really?
So,
wow.
That is
I didn't know it was
event that's been
back.
going on for a very long time.
That's awesome. And another cool thing is that a lot of times they try to get some sort of guest artists to come play with us. Like they would get like a professional player to cut, like a trumpet player or something, a keyboard guy
or saxophone
to come play with us. And that, again, that's another really cool experience to be able to play with somebody who does this for a living.
Well, and another cool thing they did, I don't know if you remember this, I can't remember exactly when they started this, but they started to do an alumni band.
Oh, yep. Yeah, that
was fun.
Yeah.
Because alumni would come back and play.
I think they started that like my senior year.
Yeah.
I think that was the first time.
That was pretty fun.
They did that. And we got to reunite with especially like the kids that were Rachel's age, because we knew them.
But there was people from farther back.
But no,
that.
there was like old people.
Yeah.
that were in it.
Old like me. It was really fun. People who, were still playing. One of the guys was like a cook from Rudy's Red Eye that still played his trumpet. And he was really good.
That was a very cool experience. All the different things that they thought of for that event. It was really fun.
Yeah, we'll leave it to, and there we go, your directors.
Right. Yeah,
But
that
you
was
didn't
what we
talk-
were gonna.
We didn't really talk
We didn't
about
really
any
talk about
trips.
them yet.
Yeah. I'll let you
I
decide.
know
if you
we
wanna
keep
talk
like
about-
going off on tangents. And
Can you tell this was a fun time for us?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'll let you decide if you want to talk about trips or your directors right now.
Oh yeah. So when we got to high school, I mean, like what my mom was saying, I swear we had like the two best teachers in the district were like our directors. They were so awesome. We had Mr. Rockford and
Mrs. Anderson.
thank you. Sorry, I had the cough.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Mrs. Anderson and Mr. Rockford. And yeah, no, they were just they were really passionate about what they did. They were always willing to, I mean, obviously they had to come in early to do jazz band with us. They would offer to stay late to help people practice and honestly, what was so cool is the band room ended up kind of providing like a sort of like a safe haven for us band kids to go to. And like I remember there's people who would literally hang out in the band room and they'd like work on homework and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was a thing that like people hung out in the band room, and people would do that during lunch too. Like people would eat lunch in the band room and hang out with the other band people. So
really special.
Yeah, no, it just ended up becoming a really special sort of group. And it was those kind of, and they were too, those kind of teachers that you could just like talk to, like they were one of your friends. And it was a really cool feeling
people to have in your life. Yeah.
Really cool feeling to have them around. And I mean, I remember, I know I'm skipping a little bit ahead with our trips here, but my senior year of high school is when we went on our big trip to New York. And I remember Mrs. Anderson talking to us about it and saying, okay, so because we knew we were going to fly back on Sunday night, meaning we're getting back late. And we've got school on Monday. Yeah. And the thing is, though, is everyone knows kind of that when it comes to like funding for schools and stuff like that, band is one of those things that's always like kind of on the edge. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's one of those things where if she starts planning these trips for us and like we're all missing school because of it, it looks bad on her for it. Yeah. And so I remember she told us, she said, okay, anybody who's coming on this trip, you have to come to school on Monday. You have to. and she told us that, well, and what was perfect though is that my band, that was my first period class, was band. And so she said, I don't care. Like on Monday, you will all come in, we'll turn off the lights, and you can take a nap. I don't care, but you have to come to school. That's what she told us. So, and we did. We all did. We all came into school that day. We turned the lights off. We all just relaxed. For that first hour or whatever. And man, that was one of my favorite memories from from the school part of band. And then of course there was pep band too, which was really fun. That was another thing that started in high school when we would play at various sports games like basketball or football. And well, football was like the biggest one because that one was outdoor. Yeah. And so that one was always the biggest deal.
Didn't you play at hockey too sometimes? Yeah. Yeah,
we played at hockey. Well, we played at hockey a few times. The only weird thing about hockey is that there was one or maybe 2 years where we made it to the state tournament, but we couldn't go to the state tournament though as a band because I guess we didn't really talk about this last time we were talking about sports, but in Minnesota, the high school hockey tournament is a huge deal.
Yes.
It's specific. Well, maybe not everyone in Minnesota, but like in the Twin Cities area, it's a big deal.
Minnesota's a huge hockey. We're the state of hockey.
Well, you're right.
Come on now.
You're right. So it's like a really big deal. Like you wouldn't think. I don't know. Maybe not everyone would think of this, but like in Minnesota, it's like they like sell out.
Yeah.
Places for these high school games.
High school,
And so because of that, they don't want to have to chunk out this huge area for the band.
Oh, they
to
want
go
paying
to.
customers.
They want. I mean, which I understand,
Yeah.
but as a student, you're always like, oh,
You're
this
like,
is the
come
worst.
on.
This is so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, we deserve to be there. Yeah. But I do remember one year when I think it was my freshman year of high school that we made the state tournament, and there, like, almost everybody was like leaving school early
Yeah.
to go watch the
Yeah.
games, and the teachers were just
course.
like, yeah.
Well, yeah,
You know,
they know it doesn't come
but-
along all the time. They get it.
And I think a lot of them wanted to watch it too. So
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
so they were like, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
You can go.
But you had other trips earlier. You had Chicago.
Right. Yep. I had
Yeah.
Chicago. That
And that was all
another
jazz.
one.
That was jazz, right?
No, Chicago was regular
Oh,
band.
that's
Chicago and New York were the regular band ones.
Okay.
Jazz was Eau Claire and
Okay.
Morris.
Not quite so exact. A little
Yeah,
more.
definitely not. Not as exotic.
Just a
for
couple hour
sure.
bus ride.
Yeah, but it was still, I mean, cool experience. Like, I remember, I think my first jazz trip was the Morris one, and I don't know if you don't know about Morris, Minnesota. Not a super populous place.
Yeah.
There's a U of M campus there,
Mhm.
and that's why we
Right.
were going there to
Right.
play for them. But I remember when we pulled in, like, we were on our bus, and when we first got there, we pulled into a McDonald's, and we were like, man, I think we're doubling the population of this place.
Oh man.
And the McDonald's was going crazy because we had,
Yeah.
like, all
But I
the
heard
kids
it-
on the bus.
I've heard it's a nice town though, but I've honestly never been there.
It's very quaint. It's nice.
So high school kids would not. exactly
I
a big
think if that's what I was gonna kind of go to, is I think if I visited there again now, I would think it's like pretty and stuff. I think when I was
Yeah.
in high school, I was like, oh, this is boring.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm
know.
sure.
Yeah. But then
Sure.
we had Eau Claire too, which that one was fun. We one of the coolest experiences I had on a trip actually was I think it was the Morris one. One of the jazz ones, we had this competition that we played in where our whole jazz band is taken into a room, and basically the room has all these stands in it that have a flipped over piece of paper on it. And what happens is we are given, I want to say it was like 5 or 10 minutes to look over the music before we had to just play it. And we had to play it the best we could.
Seen or heard before.
And so I remember what it was now. It was broken up. The time was broken up. It was like when we flipped the paper, we weren't allowed to talk or anything, but we could look at it. And I think that was for like 2 minutes or something. And then it was like after the 2 minutes were over, then we had 5 minutes to all talk with each other. We could not play anything. You could like hum stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You could, tap on your leg or something,
Yeah.
like you could do anything except actually play.
Huh.
So, and we could talk with the director too. So they're always pointing out things, and we're talking with I'm talking with my fellow trombone players.
Yeah.
Like, oh, is your part different? What's the difference? What are we doing? And then we had to play it, and we got like judged based on how well we could play, and that it was a really cool experience. It was something interesting that I had never done before. So
Oh yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine that's challenging.
did you want to say anything about like what your favorite parts of our band stuff was?
Well, I thought it was great the opportunities that you got to go on those trips.
Yeah.
At a young age and with a big group of friends, basically, and the fun. You always came back kind of having had so much fun, and just the exposure to different types of music, and knowing that your mind was a math mind. They say that translates a lot into music and reading music and stuff. So I wasn't shocked that you were good at it. But then there's also talent. There's just practice and talent and
Yeah.
all that stuff. It was very fun listening and watching to you guys mature with your instruments, because then Joey ended up playing the baritone as well.
Right. Yeah.
And it was nice that you were able to help him a little bit, and it was just nice listening to all three of you, just as you got better and better and better. And then the music was cool. I mean, I thought that your directors chose really good and kind of
Yes.
fun pieces.
Yep.
And so the concerts were fun. And the
Oh.
kids and the friends that you made, I mean, those people you're still friends with now.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm friends with a lot of
And I remember Dad and I came up with this saying, we'd call it band kids in our basement, and you and your band friends would be downstairs. And I remember, I think you were watching like Lord of the Rings or something. And all of a sudden we hear you guys and you're all humming your parts in the Lord of the Rings music. And it was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah. We were a bit band geeks for sure.
But it was just fun. And they were good kids and just, and I'm sure there's plenty of things I don't know about the kids that might alter, somehow change my opinion. But
they're all perfect.
But like I said, you're still friends with those people today. And
you still see them sometimes.
Yeah, we see them. We just love those kids. And
did you want to say anything about St. Andrews?
Oh, yeah. There
cool
was a
concerts?
special concert they do once a year in a church called St. Andrews. It's over in Matamidi. And what St. Andrews did is they built a new sanctuary with, I think what they were going for was like perfect acoustics.
Acoustics, yeah.
So the acoustics are really cool. And that's why once a year they open their building to the White Bear Lake High School Band and Choir.
Yep.
And they do it's known as the St. Andrews concert.
Yeah.
And it's usually around April.
Yep. And it's a good time for us too, because it's right in our contest season. Yeah. So yeah, that is something I didn't mention is around the springtime is every year we always play in a large group contest, our band will. And so it's these songs that we have been practicing our heart out, and it's usually they're our director's best picks, because we want to pick the best stuff for our concert or our contest. Yeah. And those are the ones that we usually play at St. Andrews.
Yeah.
And it's usually,
really
I think it's usually right after the contest. And so it's kind of like our last shebang with these songs. And we're in this beautiful place with amazing sound. And
Yeah. And there was just some fun songs, I remember Arabesque, Rachel's senior year. That was a fun one. And I think it was it your senior year that it was Angels in the Architecture?
That was Rachel's junior year.
It was?
Yep, I did not play in that song.
Oh, that was a cool song.
But that is the coolest song I've ever heard live, I think, like in terms of classical music. Like, if anyone's interested in classical music, Angels in the Architecture, it's a very long
really
song.
Neat.
It's like 15 minutes long or something, but it's so
really cool.
It's like a whole roller coaster of sounds and emotions, and it's and imagine listening to that in a giant church is like just amplifies.
Well, there was a singing part even at the beginning there.
Yep.
So someone from the choir
there's someone from the choir that did
and
the
she was
singing.
like up in the balcony.
Yeah.
And it was very dramatic too.
Yes.
So I mean, I know this sounds really geeky, because you're all probably going, okay, whatever. But if you do try to look it up on YouTube or something, it's a cool.
Yes, very cool
listen.
piece. And actually the guy who wrote that piece, his name is Frank Ticelli, and that was he was actually one of the favorite writers of Mrs. Anderson in particular. Yeah. So almost every year we played some song by Frank Ticelli. Yeah. Because I remember one time we would try to, especially for contests, we would try to play like one slower song and then one kind of more upbeat or like more intense song. And the slow song I remember one year we had was called Shenandoah, and that's a song
you had
by,
your solo in that one. That was so
yeah.
beautiful. Yes, I remember that one. And I remember, was that the same year you did The Incredibles? The theme from The Incredibles?
Well, I think we did The Incredibles in jazz band.
Oh, was it?
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure. We played The Incredibles in jazz band.
I remember that was cool.
It might have been the same year, though. Yeah.
I remember that was fun because you guys were good. That was you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was really fun.
So, yeah, I think that kind of wraps up what
I think we've geeked out enough.
Yeah, I think we've geeked out enough over our music stuff here. But if anyone wants to, send us an email about their experience with music or any questions that you have for us, feel free to send us an email. Our email is momandtompodcast, all one word, @gmail.com. You could also leave us a comment on this video or go follow us on Instagram. Instagram.com/momandtompodcast is that URL. So thank you again so much for listening, and we will see you back in a couple weeks.
All right. Bye-bye.